what do you believe about dating and how these beliefs, these thoughts affect your dating behavior and your success in love? Hello and welcome to this episode of How to Love Successfully with me, Dr. Kovanen. I'm a registered psychologist and a conscious dating coach. And in this episode, we will be talking about common myths relating to dating and how those myths may be affecting you. And I hope that after this episode, you will feel more motivated and more excited about dating and meeting the right person for you. I'm certainly excited about this episode and sharing all of this information with you. But before we start talking about common myths relating to dating, I would like to let you know about something really exciting that's coming up at the end of this month. On the 27th, Wednesday the 27th of September, I will be running How to Date Successfully masterclass, which will be about an hour-long masterclass where I'll be sharing all the information that's really vital for your dating life and dating successfully. We'll be talking about common mistakes and how to overcome those, dating in a way that feels good, dating in a way that leaves you feeling more empowered and making the right decisions when you're dating, and all of that kind of things that would set you up for dating successfully. The details will be in the show notes. Please go and check those out and go and sign up for the masterclass now, so you will be notified. You'll receive all the links and all the additional information that I'll be sharing about dating, even leading up to the 27th of September. But let's now go into this episode and this topic about common dating myths. So I will be sharing 5 myths. I mean, there would be so many to share, but just to keep this limited, because I'm also thinking about your time, but what's important for you to know and understand and reflect on when you are thinking about dating. So myth number 1 that I've chosen is something that I've heard from clients who have been even told by certain people, maybe, or advice, or maybe certain dating apps even promote this. And the myth is that you should date as many people as possible to meet the right person. And if you are someone who's very busy, if you are someone who is already kind of spreading, your energy levels thinly to different areas, someone maybe who is more introverted and thinking about sharing your energy even more, that just feels really off-putting, potentially. And I could imagine that for you, if you are hearing that, you might think, well, it's just too much. How long will I have to date to meet the right person? And going on all of these dates that I don't even know whether I like the person or so on. So that would not be my advice at all. I would say you need to become much more strategic, much more really aware of what you are kind of focused on, what you're looking for. And it all starts from you. The first, you need to really know yourself really well so that you know what type of person you are looking for. And then become really strategic and thoughtful in your process. The more conscious you are in your dating process, the more comfortable it feels, the more likely you are to meet the right kind of person for you. And really, then you are not wasting your time in the wrong places. And myth number 2 is you will know when that's the right person based on how you feel. So if you get this really excited, this kind of intoxicating feeling within yourself, then you know that this is the right person. And if you just follow this feeling that you might get around someone that you feel you are just totally intoxicated, and this person you just can't take your eyes off, and you are on the date and it just feels like you've known each other forever, and forever and ever, and you think, oh, this must be the right person. Well, the dangers are that you may be confusing excitement with actually nervous anxiety. We feel this sort of anxiety and excitement in the same kind of places, and they feel quite similar, this sort of buzzing feeling. And if you just follow that feeling, you might actually end up repeating some old dating behaviors or old relationship behaviors. So if you come across this feeling when you are really having these butterflies and you are just so kind of feeling buzzy, and what you need to do is to take a deep breath. You need to regulate your emotions. You need to calm yourself down, because it sounds like you are in that state where you're completely disconnected from your rational brain. And in dating, we need to both follow our feeling and the emotion. The emotions are the states that we have in our body and what we feel. And then we also need to engage our rational brain so that then we are able to make good decisions about the person and their suitability. So if you're having that buzzy feeling, it could be potentially about some unconscious part of you being activated. Maybe in the past you've experienced something negative in your early relationships, and this can be activated when you are meeting certain person. You may have this sort of uneasy feeling which you're not quite sure about. So that's why if you get this really buzzy feeling and excitement, you need to become your own coach and tell yourself, okay, I'm interested in and curious about what does this actually mean? And you need to take really good deep breaths and slow things down, because this person needs to demonstrate and show to you that they are worthy of your time. And you need to become curious about who they are and what they are about. So if you just follow that feeling without considering anything at all, who they are as a person, you might end up in the wrong relationship. So yeah, so never just follow that buzzy feeling that you may experience. And number 3 is then more about meeting people in face-to-face situations. I hear many, both men and women, I do work with men too, I hear many people say, I would like to meet more people in person. But in some ways, we've become more detached and more reliant on, I suppose, on these dating apps. And in my previous episodes, I talked about speed dating events and all of those lovely events where you can meet people in person. But if you are in a bar or you are in a coffee shop and you see someone who you like, and as a woman, you might think, well, if he liked me, he would approach me. And what I know also about working with men is that it's not so straightforward at all. Maybe in films and in Hollywood, again, led us to believe that we are somewhere and this person comes and approaches me, and then we'll ride on the white horses to the sunset. But it's not straightforward at all. I mean, for men too, rejection is a massive thing. And it doesn't mean that they're not confident, this person is not confident within themselves. But when they're put in a situation of potentially approaching someone who, A, they don't know whether they're single, whether they're interested, whether they're available, whether they even like to be approached, it is quite likely that they may just think, oh, that's a nice looking person. I would like to get to know them a bit more, but then just leaving it there because there's nothing to go by. So that's why, as a woman, if you do clock someone who you're interested in, potentially knowing about or talking to when you are somewhere out and about, you need to make it obvious to him in some ways that you are open to him approaching you. So this is about, of course, making eye contact and smiling and having that sort of open body language. because that's much more inviting. And sometimes men are not very good at reading the signals at all. So you have to make it quite obvious for them. And then that can give the signal, okay, she's open, I can approach and I can talk to her. But just thinking that if he was interested, he would approach you, it doesn't always work like that at all. Unless, usually in my past experiences, it was those guys who I really didn't want to approach would approach, and no one else. I did actually meet my husband online, so so that wasn't in that sort of environment at all. So then, myth number 4, the third date rule. So I remember in my dating days, and many times the question is still, it's like, when to have sex? Is it the third date rule? The first you get to know, then second time you do something, and then the third date, that's the time to have sex. Actually, scrap that. The right time to move into physical intimacy is when emotional intimacy has been established. Don't allow yourself to be pushed into physical intimacy any time sooner than when it actually feels good for you. And you have some sort of confirmation that you are on the same page with this person and you are looking for the same things. And of course, here we are talking about committed relationship. So when you feel that this person and you've had that conversation about exclusivity, both of you want to take this relationship further, then is the time for physical intimacy. So this might be much later than actually just after the third date. It depends on how you really met and the kind of conversations you've had in that time and how much you get to know each other and how comfortable you feel in his presence. And then the myth number 5 is kind of related. And it's about women's empowerment. Recently, I've been watching this Netflix series, Survival of the Thickest. And even there, it might have been the main character who said something about this modern empowerment and in implying that part of that was having casual sex. Whilst I'm all for women deciding, of course, what they want to do with their bodies and who they want to sleep with, but what can be misleading and in some of the interpretations about women's empowerment are that women should behave in the same way as men do, that women should have casual sex and then not feel affected by it at all. And I've spoken about this in one of the previous episodes in the first season of the podcast. Women's empowerment, of course, is about making decisions for you. But here, when we are talking about and looking for that committed relationship, you are empowering yourself by making better decisions that work for you and not going with the idea that you need to be like a man or you need to behave like a man. Our bodies and our psychobiology is totally different from a man. Just earlier on, I was in a workshop we're talking about menstrual cycle and how the cycle and our hormones affect us is in that around sort of 28-day cycle, whereas for men, it's a 24-hour cycle. They recharge themselves within one day. They can recharge themselves, whereas for women, we fluctuate and are much more affected by our hormones because our body was designed to create life. So the myth that modern women should be just cool about having sex and just going with it is totally BS and can lead you to wrong places, to ending up in situationships. You don't need to be okay with anything that doesn't work for you. And that's why everything in dating and building a conscious relationship starts with you. You need to first figure out what works for you, who you are, and what works for you. And then, based on that, find the right relationship for you. And the right person will respect you and the decisions you make. And if they don't, that's a goodbye. So I hope that talking about this myth help you to start reflecting on dating and maybe some of those thoughts that you have about dating that have held you back in your dating life and maybe put you off dating even. If you have any questions about dating, I would love you to also send your questions to me and I can talk about them in the future episodes. If you like to know more, now I would like to remind you again about my masterclass, How to Date Successfully, which is on the 27th of September. So go now and sign up for that masterclass and you will be notified of all the details and you get even more value and information about how to date and love successfully in the weeks to come. So now, if you found this useful, please go and leave a review and share with someone who may need to hear this. And please remember, give yourself the love you're seeking first, and then you will attract the love you want to have. Bye for now. I see you next time.